Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Speaking Spurs. Me, Kieran, talking all things Tottenham. And today we're talking pre-season game. This one did go ahead. Weather was absolutely fine against the Lion City Sailors. A team that most of you never would have heard of from Singapore. They do play in the ACL, the Asian Champions League. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Obviously, the last time that we were meant to have the game that was called off, Ange Postecoglou did say that what he was going to do was try and give some players more minutes and go for 60, but obviously that meant with that being cancelled we had a longer break in between, so he did what he did in the West Ham game and then flipped the script and just did two different sides again. So what we'll do, we'll talk about the first half team, then we'll talk about the second half team, some quotes from Ange Postecoglou from the game. But I did just want to say beforehand, I know this is a much weaker opposition in theory, and we consider teams on the opposite side of the globe that play in the Asian Champions League to be a lot weaker than European teams. And yes, it was evident that there was a bit of a gap at times. But all in all, I wouldn't say they were terrible opponents. They probably could have fared okay in the Championship. So they're not terrible quality teams sometimes, these teams in like the Asian leagues and stuff like that. And a lot of these leagues are growing now, so I want to give them where credit's due. I know we had a lot of chances in this game. We had like 27 shots in the first half. I mean, that tells you we had a lot of the ball. We attacked very much. We created opportunities. Didn't put the ball in the back of the net anywhere near as often as we should have done. But they did make it difficult for us at times and created their own chances. They did actually go 1-0 up in this game. So let's jump into it. We'll talk about the first half team. So the lineup was Vicario in goal, Porro and Udogie as left and right backs, Romero and Ben Davies once again starting as a centre-back, Sarr, Bizuma and Maddison as the midfield trio with Kulusevski, Kane and Son up top. How to sum up the first half? We created plenty of what I would call individual chances. So we weren't amazing. We found it quite hard to break the line City Sailors down. It was more individual performances, I would say, from Kulusevski and Maddison. They were the standout performers on the ball in the first half anyway. There were a few people with some dodgy performances. But as I said, it's pre-season and we did have the game rained off last time, so that was another week where they couldn't get match sharpness. So yeah, we'll talk about the players individually now. So Vicario in goal, couldn't keep out Anwar's effort from close range, had nothing else to do other than one flying punch. Pedro Porro on the right, didn't have a good game at all really in my opinion. Lost Anwar behind him for Sailors to score the opening goal. He did little of note at the other end either, other than putting a corner in that Sarr headed over. So a poor day from him. And I'm starting to think the more I see him, obviously we know he wasn't brought in as a right back, he was brought in as a right wing back. We now have a manager with a change of system. He has been the one that has started the last two games, but I still feel very much that Emerson Royale is the better of them in defence. I think he's the one to go forward with, certainly throughout the season. Maybe it's just a case that Ange is trying to give Porro a bit more confidence to try and build that and have more competition between the two. Then moving on to the other side, Destiny Udogie, he teed up Kane's early effort that was sent wide. He was caught unaware by Davies losing the ball, so had to race back to the goal. An okay performance from him. You know, Bright wasn't as influential as he was in the first game against West Ham, but he did okay, and you know he's got to settle into the squad, so he's kind of forgiven at the moment. Christian Romero put in a couple of strong tackles and sent in some headers from corners to no avail. Okay performance from him. At times he did go in very hard. He absolutely walloped someone from behind. Okay, not much to have to deal with, to be honest. Ben Davies, he gave the ball away in the build-up to the Sailors' goal, and he was caught out of position because of it. But apart from that, typical Ben Davies performance. And interestingly, comments from Ange Postecoglou about Ben Davies. He's actually come out and said that in his system, he thinks that Ben Davies is going to be a very good left back. So the only reason he's playing at centre back at the moment is because Dyer's not ready to be starting games because obviously he had his surgery, so he's had to recover. His pre-season has been delayed. He did come on in this game. He did play the second half. And then I think Tanganga, he doesn't want to play on the left, so naturally, because obviously Clement Longley went back to Barcelona, it makes sense for Ben Davies to be the one to take the left-sided centre-back position. So he's doing okay, but expect to see him playing more left-back throughout the season. Right, then into midfield. So Pap Matassar in the starting lineup following Postecoglou's effusive praise of him. And he sent the first chance of the game over with a volley from the edge of the box. He played a low volley, lovely ball for to the wing for Kulusevski to attack, and then headed over from Porro's corner. He hit the crossbar with a shot late in the half. Busy display from him. And was probably our best player of the half. Actually, when I did the player ratings, I actually gave him an 8. I thought he was very bright, took his chance really well in the team, and he's had a lot of praise from Ange saying that he plays with a smile on his face, he suits the system, he works really hard, and I think we're seeing that. It was really nice to see him. Then also midfield, Yves Bissouma, he played the deeper role for the first 45 minutes, sprayed a couple of good balls about, but didn't really do anything too showy. He was good in possession further up the field, I felt. Quite tidy. But, he's going to grow into the role and the confidence of having more minutes. Then James Maddison. He had a number of shots from distance that were saved or blocked. Played a great ball with the outside of his foot to Son to send the South Korean through. But he tried to curl it across the Kane instead of shooting. He had a shot saved in the 36th minute. One of Spurs' better players in the first half, and I thought the West Ham game, he was okay. This game, I feel like he moved on to the next level. There were some nice passing moments in and around the edge of the box from him, so he's another one. He's going to grow into it, and we already know what he can do in the Premier League on a poor Leicester side, so hopefully in a good Spurs side, he'll be a great player. Moving on to the front three, Dejan Kulusevski, he took a whack during a collision with the goalkeeper early on. Had one chance to cross, but he didn't trust his right and instead cut in and curled an effort over with his right. He set up Maddison with his left. Set up Maddison for a chance late in the half. Had a few moments when he could have used his right foot but didn't. Kept cutting back onto that left foot. There's a few times we were actually in the first half spraying some nice balls out wide, and they were in front of Kulusevski to run onto, and all we needed him to do in that moment was just wrap his foot round it and bend it low into the box, and instead he didn't take the first time ball, would then cut back inside, and we know he's great on his left foot, but I think they kind of caught onto this, the City Sailors, and they just allowed him to keep drifting in. They just followed him inside, so it didn't have as much of an impact as he'd have liked to from there. Yeah, I mean, an okay performance, industrious. He had a lot of the ball, but didn't use it as well as he could have done. On the other side, Sonny, sent through by Maddison, but as we said, tried to curl in across for Kane instead of shooting and completely misjudged it. He did head home during the half, but he was flagged offside. Struggled to carve out opportunities, and out there, he kept getting the ball quite wide, was kind of cutting into the edge of the box. The left-hand side of the edge, so not the edge of the 18-yard box in play. It was on the left wing around the edge there, doing lots of step overs, not really to much avail, and didn't have a full run at his fullback. So not the best performance from him, but certainly not the worst. Then the man in the middle, Harry Kane, the man that's being linked with a move away, fired a good early chance wide, and then ballooned over a loose ball from a saved Maddison shot. That was just after the hour mark. He did little else of note, really, until he fired home from the penalty, as Kane does. Expert penalty once again. He sent the keeper the wrong way. That was it. Wasn't really great from Kane, to be honest. He didn't do too much. There were a couple of moments where he tried to help out defensively early in the first half and showed some good intent, which was nice to see. But at the moment, with his future kind of up in the air, who really knows where his head's at and what's going on. So, yeah, first half was kind of good, bright, but once again it was the second half team that really impressed, as it did against West Ham. The second half team came out flying, and they came out with more intent in this game as well. So it's a lot to say about these so-called second string players. So yeah, the first half finished 1-1. Second half come out, and then we had Richarlison with a hat-trick. Lo Celso impressed once again, as he did against West Ham. Got himself a goal as well. So the team was changed. Brandon Austin in goal. I think we would have seen Alfie Whiteman in goal for this one because Austin played the first one. However, he went down with an injury in training, an ankle injury, and was stretchered off. So no more Alfie Whiteman that we know of in pre-season. So yeah, Brandon Austin in goal. Emerson Royale right back. Sergio Reguilon left back. Centre backs of Eric Dyer and Tanganga. Dyer on the left, Tanganga on the right. The midfield made up of Skippy, Højbjerg and Lo Celso, which means the front three were Manor Solomon on the right this time. He was on the left in the last game. Richarlison through the middle and Perisic on the left. So, second half, yeah. What was interesting in the first half, we very much dominated down the right-hand side. And the second half, we very much dominated down the left-hand side. So yeah, Austin in goal. Barely had a thing to do as the tired sailors were cast adrift in their own half for much of the game. A low score, but that's not his fault. In terms of what I would give him for a player rating, I only would have given him a 6, but that's not his fault. He just didn't have much to do. So, what more can you do in that situation? It's a good thing when a keeper has nothing to do. Then on the right back, Emerson Royale managed to get high up the pitch a lot while offering plenty of defensive work down the right. Picked out. Who did he pick out? He picked out someone with a perfect flick for... Oh, picked out Richarlison with a perfect flick for his third goal. Tanganga at centre-back, wearing a headband after seemingly taking a whack before the game. He dealt with everything that came his way. It was a much more comfortable performance than we've seen of him lately. But, as I say, they played well on the day as a unit, but I think the quality they had in attack wasn't what you're going to get from a Premier League striker. So, Eric Dyer, his first minutes of pre-season, and he didn't do much wrong during his turn on the pitch. And again, not much else to say. Sergio Reguilon, another energetic display down the left without being tested too much. The quality of his crossing once again was left to be a little desired at times. However, there was one absolute peach of a ball that he sent over that was very reminiscent of some of the crosses that he did in his first season for Tottenham, running down the left. And he had that, it's like a really bendy cross that comes all the way in, enough of a tester for the keeper, bends right round to sort of near the edge of the 6-yard box on the right. Lovely cross. Moving on to the midfield. So Oliver Skipp covered plenty of grass whilst on the pitch, and Postecoglou admitting beforehand that he's actually one of the fittest players because of the Euro under-21s exploits. So for those of you that, well, I'm sure you all know, Skippy obviously went away with the under-21s, didn't play as much as he would have liked, but obviously he's been consistently training, then didn't really have much of a break after winning that tournament, even though Spurs said he could. So he came back quite quickly. So he just came back in good condition. He's been speaking himself this week, saying that his injuries, as far as he's concerned, are behind him, and he feels like he's fitter than he has been in a long time. So yeah, very energetic, but as I said, we dominated down the left in this half, so actually Skippy didn't see too much of the ball. Højbjerg, placed in the anchor role in a busy display, kept the ball ticking over, and typical of Højbjerg, there were some misplaced passes where he's been so used to doing the defensive work when he goes forward. Sometimes he's a little bit lacking, but considering he's being linked with a move away and it sounds like he's requested to go, still did a good job for us. The other man in the midfield, Giovanni Lo Celso, had it not been for the hat-trick from Richarlison, probably would have been the best player of the second half. So it was another bright creative display. He deservedly bagged himself his second goal of pre-season with a close range finish. It was good awareness. He made some nice passes, kept the ball ticking over really nicely at times. And I think he's just quite an intelligent player on the ball. He's very good at knowing when to not make the pass, cut back inside and play it in a different direction. Now moving on to the front three, Manor Solomon, another promising 45 minutes from him. Showed some good pace at times, some good trickery. Sometimes I feel like he held onto the ball a little bit too long, but I think that's just where he's trying to prove himself as a new player. He had a shot that hit the post, and and his low ball deflected into the path of Lo Celso to score. And yeah, he was just a constant threat. I'm quite impressed with him. He's played a game on either wing now for us, so we can see his versatility there. Quite excited to see what the future brings from him, especially for somebody that's a free transfer. On the left, Ivan Perisic looked sharp again and was involved in both of Richarlison's early goals. And look, I mean, considering his age, he is still so fit and he constantly runs. I know a lot of times last season he looked like he was an influential player but didn't want to run all the time. However, he's come back and he's in very good condition, and I appreciate the energy that he's putting in. He was better in the game against West Ham in terms of the quality of delivery, but I think in this game he ran more and was a bit more industrious. So yeah, mixed bag from him, but still, a very good player, and hopefully we do keep him around for this season, because I think the fact that we picked him up on a free, there's no need to make any money off him to sell him. We might as well have him for another season and let him go again on a free. Okay, and now on to the main man in the middle, Richarlison. I said in the last game against West Ham, he had the offsides, but he was making very good runs, always in good positions. He was just going a little bit too early, hurrying his finishing a little bit, because I said he's always full of emotion, but he really answered his critics today. The first two goals of his were actually because of his awareness, rather than great finishes. He was completely switched on for the first two goals, and his third goal for the hat-trick was just a very good bit of play after he picked up the ball, showed some good strength for using his arm to hold off the defender, tucked it away nicely. But he did actually have the ball in the back of the net 5 times, and shock horror, 2 of them were offside. So of the 4 offsides that went against Spurs up to a certain point in the game, 3 of them were goals, 1 from Sonny, 2 from Richarlison. So yeah, he scored twice early in the second half. The first, he side-footed home, and that was from a rebound that came out. He was just the first aware, straight onto it, boom. Keeper had no chance because he was already on the floor. Picked his spot nicely and calmly, scored that goal, did a little pigeon dance. Then the second one, he headed home. That was, so what happened, a ball was played in, their defender allowed it to come over him and then made a header that was quite weak back towards the keeper. It wasn't many yards. It was only like 4 or 5 yards between the defender and the goalkeeper. Very weak header. Richarlison stayed alive, came in and nodded it into the back of the net. So good awareness from him, but poor defending from then. And then he sent 2 headers past the keeper, only to be flagged offside on both occasions. And one of those headers was... It was a very good header. It was reminiscent of a Harry Kane header, one of those ones where he cushions it. So it was from the left-hand side of the goal, cushioned it across to the right-hand side, and then in off the post. It was a very good goal, and I can't remember who crossed the ball in, but it was a gorgeous delivery, but offside. And then he finally got the hat-trick he wanted in the 90th minute with a cute finish. The ball was flicked through. Oliver Skip then went to make a pass with a little flick, but decided to pull out of it last second as Richarlison had made the good run. Used his arm to hold off the defender, and it was a cute little finish. So he's in between the defender and the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper comes out, starts to go down, and he just dinks it gently across, and it trickled into the net very slowly, and celebrated for the last time with another pigeon dance. And I'm really happy for Richarlison because he works ridiculously hard. He made some excellent runs. I know he was caught offside for 2 of his goals, but that means he put the ball in the back of the net 5 times in 45 minutes. And I know, as we've said, the quality of the opposition, not the best, but his awareness, the runs that he made. There were a few times he made some great runs, but players didn't quite pick him up. A few times Perisic could have maybe played a pass, but then a defender came in the way. But the runs he was making were exceptional, and he's looking sharper and had a very good game, and I'm really happy for him. So hopefully, even though 2 were disallowed for offside, the fact that he's put the ball in the back of the net 5 times in 45 minutes will give him the confidence to kick on. And actually, if Harry Kane was to go, don't want him to, obviously, I have the belief that in this system, Richarlison will get goals. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near as prolific as he was today, but I think he will score goals without a doubt because he suits the system and he makes the runs and works hard. So now we'll talk about the interview with Postecoglou and what he had to say on the game. So, were you able to learn much from that match? He said, you always learn. We've kind of used this final leg just to catch up on what we missed in Thailand by not playing the game. Training sessions have been solid, to say the least. The boys have worked really hard, and the conditions here make that difficult. So I knew we weren't going to be sharp, but attitude and endeavour was there. So what he's saying there, they've been training in quite humid and hot conditions. And obviously, without having that game in between, it's just meant we've lacked a little bit of match sharpness. He said we're trying to implement the stuff we've been working on, and that's the main thing. We maybe didn't have the legs, but the effort and desire to put in place what I've been working on was there. He was then asked, Giovanni Lo Celso was bright again tonight, and there are reports in Spain saying that you've told him you want him to stay this season. Is there any truth in that? And he said, I'm here, mate, and you don't have to go all the way to Spain. Just ask the question. I'm really happy with Gio. He's been really good in training. You can see he's a quality player, and I think the way we play suits him. I've enjoyed working with him, and I think he's enjoying himself in terms of the football we want to play. And yeah, it's going well. And this pleases me because I've been saying I don't want Lo Celso to go. He's finally got a manager that plays the style of football that we want to play. The style of football, yes, us as fans, that we want to play. And Lo Celso is that attacking player. He's diminutive, he moves around, he gets in the pockets, he's got a good eye for a pass. He will come back and try and do the defensive work, but if we use the system to its full strengths, we'll be in possession a lot more, which means Lo Celso won't have to risk his body as much and pick up those niggling injuries. So, look, I'm just saying, Lo Celso's doing well. And it's meant that even though Tanguy Ndombele was probably the preferred player for Postecoglou, where he's been injured, he hasn't been used. So Lo Celso's been given the chance to, show him what he can do, but also maybe put himself in the shop window. I'm just hoping he don't go nowhere. Then there was says, is Yves Bissouma okay? He went down on the floor after his warm down with a problem in his foot and needed treatment. He said, yeah, I think so. He did all the runs at the end. I think he was exhausted, mate. I haven't picked up anything from the medics. It's fair to say they'll be exhausted after what we've done in the last 3 days, but I don't think there's any issues. So for those of you that don't know, every now and again he does a double session, a bit like Pochettino used to do. So they've had a few of them thrown in. They're really being put through the paces to get them fit before the season. So I'm sure it's nothing too troublesome. He was then asked, can I ask you about Joe Lewis and what's happened to him? So those of you that don't know, Joe Lewis is in a little bit of trouble for insider trading and telling people stuff that they've been able to benefit from financially. And to be honest, I don't care about any of it because it hasn't taken place at Tottenham. He removed himself, I think, from the trust last year. The family's names are very much in that now. So theoretically, it doesn't affect Tottenham, so I don't care. And neither does he. He basically said the club put out a statement, so there's no need to comment on it. Then he was asked, will your plans remain unchanged? He was like, why wouldn't they be? The club's already said it's not a club matter, so, let's just move on from that. No interest. He said, they then asked, with the problems on this tour, how do you reflect on it with having a game rained off and playing a team you weren't meant to play? So obviously we were meant to play Roma in this game originally, who then pulled out the tour for whatever reasons. So he said, yeah, you just got to deal with it. There's no point. A lot of it was taken out of our hands. You plan these things with the best will in the world. Look, my philosophy is that you've just got to get on with it. There's no point complaining. We're not going to get this time back. We've got to use it the best we can, and I think we have, to the best of our intentions and what we've had to work with. The beauty of it for me is that the players have stayed focused on listening to us and working through and without letting it affect their attitude and morale around the place. That's been important. That sort of stuff gets tested when things aren't running smoothly. So it's good to see that reaction because things aren't going to run smoothly throughout the year either. There's going to be some challenges for us. Seeing the whole group, players and staff, just get on with it is pleasing for me. But yeah, it hasn't been ideal. Richarlison had a difficult year after a big move. Do you see his confidence go up now? He said, I hope so. I've said before that I really like Richie. He's someone who has got all of the attributes I look for in a striker, in that he's got a strong work ethic. He's always in the right areas and he's presenting himself and making a presence of himself in the right areas for the way we play. He was probably a bit unlucky not to get a couple of goals against West Ham that night. Again, he was in the right areas today. I have a lot of time for him, and he's one of the ones I'm looking forward to working with. From the outside, you see a player and you try to picture how they fit into the kind of football you want to play, and I certainly think he can. And that's great news. That's got to send a little bit of confidence to Richarlison as well, because you'll probably get to hear these interviews. So yeah, looking forward to that. He was asked for his opinion on Lion City Sailors. He said, I thought it was a good game. They made it hard for us in the first half. They've obviously got a new manager in place too, and they've brought in some new players. Traditionally, they've always been one of the two strongest teams here in Singapore, so I'm sure they'll get back up there. It's a worthwhile exercise for us. We try to use this whole 3 days we've had as a block of really putting in work into a lot of work into the players to try and make up for not having the game in Thailand. Tonight added to that. The boys worked hard and they were made to work hard. And they were. I mean, as I said, although they're not at the same level, at times they've made some good breaks. They certainly tested us in the midfield area. Even though we had more possession, at times when they had the ball, they played some tidy stuff. So it was definitely a worthwhile test. Then he was asked, what do you feel Richarlison's qualities are that are different to Harry Kane's? He said, look, they're different strikers. They have different strengths. Both, though, I think have a real presence in the penalty box. And that's why Harry has scored so many goals and why he's one of the best strikers in the world. Richie is also a presence in the box in a different way. So I think they've both got the right kind of qualities to play in that area. And I think with Richie, he can also play wide as a second striker, mainly because he's got, and I think people dismiss it a bit, a really strong work ethic. He works hard for the team, and a lot of what he does doesn't get seen. His pressing, his runs, sometimes he doesn't get the ball, but he'll always make those runs, and he's a constant nuisance for defenders, so he can play a couple of positions for sure. And this is what I was actually saying in my comments when talking about Richarlison, about he made a really nice run, and nobody even picked him up. But when he makes that run, even if he doesn't get the ball, it automatically drags a defender. So when a defender is dragged, it then creates a gap. And with that gap, another player can move into it. So he does a lot of unselfish work, and he definitely does a lot of pressing with Cine. He just flies like a madman at people to chase him down. He actually made a couple of fouls where he just ran straight into the back of the same player twice. And I don't mind that because he presses from the front. And that's what you need to do. When he presses, it forces people to play a ball quicker. They can end up making a mistake. We turn over the ball and we're back on the attack. So, yeah, I've got a lot of time for him. And then lastly, what have you made of the fans in Singapore? He was like, we had a great reception, a great welcome. They're there every day at the hotel as well. They came out tonight, and it's good that they got to see a few goals and the players that they admire from afar and up close. We've had a great welcome here, and it's a great stadium to play football in. I think the players enjoyed that tonight. Not playing in Thailand was a bit frustrating, so at least one more game before we headed home was really good, and the crowd added to that. So all in all, yes, not the best team we're going to come up against, but it was a really good exercise. Frustratingly, he obviously didn't get to give players 60 minutes like he wanted to, but that will probably come in the next game. So we've got the game against Shakhtar Donetsk at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and then we finish up, I think it's 2 days later, against Barcelona, and that will be the last game we play just before the season starts. And I think it's only 5 days after the Barcelona game before kickoff, so we've not got a lot of time to get ready. Still more players to probably come in. The defence obviously conceded again in not a great way. Pedro Porro was quite poor once again defending for the goal. So look, there's bits to work on, but I'm sure if Emerson Royale had been in there for the first half, we don't concede that goal because he's more defensively astute. But all in all, I'm impressed. Certainly, some of the new signings are looking good. Maddison's setting in. Solomon looks like he's going to be an absolute nuisance for defenders out wide. Tanganga's growing in confidence. Skippy's obviously injuries are behind him. Lo Celso is looking great, and hopefully he stays. Richarlison is now scoring goals. Perisic, God knows what's going to happen with him, but he's looking good. Vicario didn't have a lot to do once again, so we'll probably see in the next 2 games because he'll probably have a bit of a tougher time. We'll probably see him complete a full match at least in the Barcelona game. You know, Sar's looking good. Basuma's had a pretty good time so far. Kulusevski, we saw him with more of the ball. Sonny, that was his first proper game, so we'll see on him. Kane is looking a bit in the background at the moment and not at his best. But yeah, defensively, it really is that where the problem is at the moment. The rest of the pitch, I haven't got much of a problem. If we were not to sign anyone midfield forward for the rest of the window and kept the midfielders that we've got and the attackers, I think I'd be quite happy, if I'm honest. Defensively, we just need a few tweaks. I want to see Emerson Royale starting at right back, and I would like to see at least one centre back come in of a decent quality with another backup in there. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Support it with a like, and as always, put your comments below. We'll keep the conversation going. I do get active in the comments and do talk to people as well, as some of you will know. So thanks for sticking around, and until next time, come on you Spurs.